Greetings, traveler. Have you ever been in a situation where you are called upon to create a pitch for a new game? You put together a deck, you present the idea to your team, or perhaps a team of executives or some publisher out there, and the pitch gets completely rejected. Where can you go from here? What does it mean? What are the next possible steps? And assuming that this rejection is final, how can you use it in the best possible way to move forward, not just with your career, but emotionally and in life in general? So today I want to talk about my experience dealing with this kind of situation, which is very common in the games industry. I want to talk about the hard mode of dealing with this, and finally give you my easy way of handling this situation to make sure that you get the best possible outcome out of this. My name is Xanthos. I've been working in the games industry for over 13 years, and rest assured, right from the beginning, the task of coming up with a game pitch, so coming up with an idea for a possible game to be developed by the development team or for an external studio and so on, has been there right from the beginning. So typically what you do in this kind of situation is you think about an idea, you think about what would be cool about it, why players would want to play it, what benefits it offers over existing games that are already out there in the same genre, in the same type. And you need to present it to someone with a specific goal of convincing them that this is a worthwhile idea for them to invest the company's money in it, or the investors or the publishers, that the team will want to work on it, and ultimately that when the game is complete, it will create lots of happy players, lots of money for the company, and lots of success for the developers. So that is what a pitch is, and we generally put all of our best effort when we're designing a game like that, when we're putting our pitch together, the pitch deck or the presentation, or what we're going to say and how we're going to present the idea. But it just so happens that sometimes, very often actually, that idea gets rejected. So people listening don't think it's a good idea, they don't think it's a fun game, they don't think it suits the market, they don't think people will buy it, and they don't think or that it should be made, or that it can be made with the existing capabilities of the team or the studio and whatever. So the reasons for an idea like that, a pitch like that, getting rejected are so many, right? You can never know exactly why somebody decided to reject this kind of idea, even if they say the reason verbally. That is because people think about things in a very complicated way, right? There can be many reasons why someone might choose to reject such an idea. And even if you ask them for explanations, which is already a luxury because most of the time you don't get to hear what the explanation is. But even if you do manage to hear it, that person might not give you the full explanation. They might not know the full reason why they are rejecting an idea, or even worse, they might give you an explanation, but because that person or that team doesn't fully understand themselves and their own thinking process, the reasons they say they rejected the idea might be different from the actual reasons they rejected the idea. And they themselves very often do not know why, because many people just don't think so much in an introverted way to understand their own thinking process. This is not bad necessarily. This is just a lot of how a lot of people think about these kind of things. So the hard way of dealing with this would be, first of all, resenting the person, right? Thinking that, oh my God, they didn't like my idea. I put so much work into it. I put so much effort into it. How can they not see that this is going to be the best game ever? They should, of course, accept it, and so on. So these are, of course, very, very natural feelings, albeit a bit dark at the time, but it's simply part of life. regardless when we feel them, and certainly when I felt them when my pitches got rejected a lot of the time, I thought that basically I was 100% right and the person doing the rejection was 100% wrong. Now, obviously, this is extremely illogical. There's no way that the situation is so extreme. Even if they rejected the idea, there's definitely some part of it they liked, and whether they said it or not, there is a version of this idea that they would like to say yes to. But in its current version, they have to say no. So the hard mode of dealing with this is blaming the other person, thinking that their understanding is not enough, thinking that my idea was perfect, even if probably it wasn't, and I shouldn't do anything else in this situation. I should just leave things as they are. So I used to think like that a lot of the time, and what I found for sure is that this kind of reaction to the rejection did not help me, first of all. It did not lead to people changing their minds magically about the idea. It did not lead to me making more games. It just didn't serve any purpose for me. So when thinking about how to move on from that point and how to make as much gain as possible from a rejection like that, I tried many different types of thinking, and I researched what other people do in other industries when their proposals get rejected. And the cool thing about other industries is that they're much more dispassionate about their stuff. So it's a building project or a food distribution project or a store layout project. People are much less passionate about things like that typically than we are about our games in the games industry. And what I found is that when people like that make a proposal and it gets rejected, they immediately start looking into the proposal and trying to configure it in a different way to make it more suitable, and this is an important point, for the listener's requirements. So understanding the listener better and understanding what their priorities are is one of the two big steps into having more successful pitching sessions. The other thing I realized from other industries is that you might have the perfect pitch, you might have the perfect idea that's 100% flawless and there's nothing wrong with it, but perhaps you're talking to the wrong person. So taking exactly the same idea, exactly the same presentation, and presenting it to two different people will almost certainly give you two different reactions. Maybe they will both say no, but for different reasons, or one of them might say no and the other will say yes. So keeping in mind that just because one person said no, that doesn't mean that everybody out there will say no. So keeping this process going, keep improving on the presentation and keep asking different people seems to be something that works very well for people in other industries. So I thought, okay, that's cool. What does that mean for me? How can I apply it to my own presentations and my own pitches? The biggest shift came when I stopped thinking about the presentation or a pitch like that as a one-stop deal or a one-off presentation or a single event like that, and I started thinking of it as a process. And when I started thinking of it as a process, I discovered the following. So for example, I had this idea for a game I wanted to develop back in a company that I was working at, and no matter how many times I pitched it to my boss and how many times I changed the elements and changed it so that it would be more likable to him, it would be closer to his likes and so on, no matter how many times I did it, I never got a yes out of him. And of course this was very disheartening. I thought, oh man, my idea was so terrible. This experienced person keeps saying no, so there's got to be something wrong with the idea or with me or the way I do work. And after I said, well, perhaps there is something wrong with my idea, so I should definitely keep working on it, but perhaps this is just not the right person. to be talking about this particular idea, this particular game that I had in mind. So what I did was keep working on the idea, keep taking the feedback that I heard from that person, but also start showing the idea to other people. And not necessarily game producers or game investors or the people who are supposed to listen to this, but people like my friends, other players, other developers in the team, and just hear from their perspective what the feedback for the idea was. So of course they wouldn't have any power over approving the idea or funding it or anything like that, but just doing a reality check and listening to what they thought about the idea based on their likes, their personality, the games they play usually, and so on, had a hugely beneficial effect on the quality of my idea. And by continuing to ask different people and present to different people about the idea, the magical thing that happened was that the quality of the idea kept going up and up and up, and I started getting closer and closer and closer to the kind of person who would want to accept this idea, who would want to fund it and develop it and so on. So instead of thinking it as a one-stop process, thinking of it as a continuous process that improves over time had a tremendous effect on the success rate I had with these pitches. So thinking about it as a one-stop type of deal meant that it's either 100% or 0% success, but thinking of it as a process, it just showed me over time how the metrics kept going up and up and up. And the metrics in this case is how good other people thought the idea was, how many elements of the idea they liked, and how close they were to be willing to develop it or fund it or just say yes to the pitch and so on. This gave me a very qualitative way to understand how close I was to getting this pitch accepted, and it gave me milestones along the way of the eventual yes to the pitch. So it wasn't black or white, it wasn't yes or no, but it was how close to a yes are we, and what can we do to get closer. And of course, the other amazing realization was that it could be the best idea in the world, but just speaking to the wrong person about it will not make that person say yes magically. Perhaps there's nothing really you can do about that. You can of course take their feedback and try to improve the idea as much as possible, but perhaps this is just a time to take as much as you've improved it and take it somewhere else and talk to some new people about it. Anyway, this is what I did. This is what worked really, really well for me. It completely shifted my mind from a yes or we're all doomed kind of mindset, which was not helpful at all. And it gave me, instead of a one trick sure shot success method, which I know sounds good on the internet, but doesn't really happen so much in real life, instead of that mythical, magical, weird thing, it gave me a very realistic, let's call it, pathway to success. So as long as you keep walking down that path, you cannot but get closer to the success that you have in mind, because you're just taking very, very logical steps towards it. So in my case, if I kept making the idea better and better and better, and I kept talking to people who are more like-minded and were more likely to be interested in this particular type of idea for a game, then basically I was setting myself up for success. Anyway, I know this is a niche topic, but I know there's a lot of people out there who have their own ideas for a game, and sometimes these games are too large to be made by a single person and they just require a bigger team. So even if it helps just one more person out there make their game and help them share it with as many people as possible, I will be more than happy. Anyway, thank you so much for your time, and as always, have fun.